What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by Major League Success. I have Brad Winter with us. He's with the Winter Group at Remax Connection.
That's right. What's up, everybody? Nice to meet you. And live here. So thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming on. We were just chit-chatting a little bit before, and I was like, I don't think we've ever connected before. And I've had several agents come on here recently where, I haven't had the chance to connect beforehand. And I personally love it that way because for me, it allows me to just kind of get to know you, ask some questions. And what this podcast, what Tell Me More is all about is, reaching out to successful real estate agents, and eventually it's going to go to just people in the real estate space.
Yep.
And just sharing their journey to getting into the business and where they're currently at and where they're headed. One of my passions is really helping newer agents who are getting into the business, get that momentum going, and if an agent out there or someone can relate to your story and they can reach out to you to ask you questions, or they can see that it's possible. That's what this is all about. So Brad, thank you so much for jumping on and
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Sharing the story. But I always like to start growing up in the very beginning. And as I interview people, a lot of times there's usually things that happen in the early years or high school, college that really influences their real estate business. So what was life like growing up?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's always an honor to come on these type of things. And like you said, you like to help newer agents, and somebody has always helped us, right? So I think if we can pass it on, not necessarily to the next generation, but obviously to the next kind of wave of newer agents, then always more than happy to do that. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Well, I grew up in Bellefontaine, Ohio. I don't know if you know where that's at. I don't know if a lot of people here know where that's at, but if you take Route 33 out of Dublin, you run into it eventually. So small farm town. I didn't really grow up around real estate, but I was kind of like in the building world. My entire family are construction workers. So like all my uncles, both grandparents, my father, so they were always building things, right? And everybody built their own house. And so I was around that. And then, I played sports in high school, and, I had a really great life growing up. I have a younger brother. My mom's an artist, so there's like some of that design sense, kind of in me a little. And then after high school, I went to Kent State. I was fortunate enough to play college baseball. So I think some of that competitiveness, that we all have in us, that kind of translated over. And the funny thing is, when I graduated college, it was in 2009. And we all know what the market was like in 2009. And I remember my mom, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like everybody else, I had a degree,
What did you go to school for?
So I was a business major.
Okay.
Baseball lifer though, right? Like baseball was my thing. So I don't know if I paid that much attention in college, believe it or not. But when I got done, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. And my mom was like, you should go into real estate. Like, you're really good with people. You're a good listener. Like, you care about people. And I was like, Mom, do you not see what's going on in the world? Like, there's no way that I should get into real estate. Like, you're crazy. I got bills. I got student loans,
Yeah.
So I bypassed that, and I got into, eventually I got into med device sales.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of where I started in the business world. And so that led me to, I guess, over the last 10 years, really, I've been in med device sales.
That's it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I want to back up because I want to add on to that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I've interviewed several people that have their families have been in the real estate space while they were growing up. Some as realtors. Nathan White.
Yeah, absolutely.
His dad was a builder, right?
Yep.
And it's always interesting did they ever push you into real estate, or did you have like a hatred for it, or did you love it? Like, because it's always like it's a mix between the majority are like, oh, I'm never getting into it. And then they end up getting into
Get
it.
into it.
So,
Yeah. They fall right into it.
were you always on job sites and things like that?
Yeah. So, yeah. So my summer jobs are always with my dad, right? Like I played, in summertime in high school, I was playing on a pretty big travel baseball team. So the afternoons were pretty busy with baseball. So he'd make me go to work with him. We'd get up at 4 a.m., be in the job site at 5, an hour away in Lima, Ohio, most of the time. And I'd
Yeah.
work from like 5 to noon, right? And the type of construction he was doing is more commercial. So like hospitals, schools, factories, they were massive. We're talking, 50 to $100 million projects. And he was the superintendent. So he was running the operation.
Yeah.
He wasn't swinging a hammer, but I was. And let me tell you, if you've ever been on a job site and your dad is the boss, that is a tough time as a 15, 16, 17-year old, and
Yeah.
everybody knows your dad is the boss. So, I saw construction in my life and I always saw things being built, but I never kind of put it together until later in life, that,
Sure.
oh, I have a lot of interest in that. Or actually, I kind of know a lot about this, from maybe a design standpoint and, structural type stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until later in life that I kind of found my way back, I guess.
It's always interesting. It's like, maybe back then it was just like, man, it was just a job, right? It
It
was just like,
was.
all right, I gotta go do this again,
It was just a job, and it was a job with my dad, who was the boss with a bunch of rough construction workers, so
yeah,
but what about
yeah,
you?
you're
How'd you get
right.
into it?
So, I went to Ohio State, and my grandfather was an accountant. So originally, I
Okay.
came to Ohio State for accounting. I'm from a small town, northeast Ohio, and I just saw the influence and the impact that he had, and just kind of like his life and the things that it provided him. So
Yep.
I came to Ohio State for accounting, and at Ohio State, you had to take calculus for your accounting degree, and I failed the first exam. I think I got like a 34%,
Wow.
and then every exam for the next however it was. I think we were on semesters back then, quarters. I don't.
Yeah.
Anyways, I got better and better, and then the final was like the make or break. If I did
Oh,
good, I passed the class. If I did bad, I failed the class, and I failed. I bombed the final. And
dang.
so I switched majors to at Ohio State. It's called sports and leisure studies,
Yep.
which is pretty much what athletes took. And
Yeah, for sure.
you had two tracks. You had gym teacher, or kind of like going into the sports industry as far as corporate, right?
Hmm.
Or selling season tickets was really the entry level job that you
For
typically
sure.
did. And I was 2011 is when I graduated, and 22 years old and cocky, and I was like, I'm worth more than working 60, 70 hours a week selling season tickets,
Yeah.
somewhere. And
Yeah.
I got into real estate, found my mentor. Actually, I
Wow.
met Tracy Chambers, who was at Keller Williams Consultants,
Yeah.
and she's the only one that replied. I went on Google and I found random people. She was one that I had happened to email, and she replied, and she's like, "Hey, there's a young guy in my office," which is funny. When I met him, he's my age, 33. He was 33 then,
Wow.
and she's like, he's trying to build a team, and I think you guys would be a great fit. I've been with him ever since. 3 weeks after
Wow.
graduating, started working with him. Was his admin for the summer as I took weekend classes at Hondros.
Started
And
at the bottom.
yeah, but like for me, it provided a freedom and some lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
my friends were, working jobs that they didn't necessarily want to work at, and clocking in and clocking out. And, he
Yeah.
took me under his wing and showed me the ropes.
That's awesome. Love that.
So,
You're a veteran. You're an old vet.
yeah. And you know what? I'm actually, thankful that I kind of got in at that time, 2011.
For
We're
sure.
still doing foreclosures and short sales, and all of those things. And what it's taught me, and what it's allowed me to teach other agents, is it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. Real estate's always going to sell, right?
For
It's
sure.
buying. People are
Absolutely.
going to buy. People are going to sell. Even right now, I tell people, if you're a real estate agent and you're scared or you're nervous about your business, like you just got to get on a different bus, right?
Yeah.
You got to get around different people,
Yep.
because no matter what's going on, someone's going to have to sell, someone's going to have to buy. It's just whether or
100%.
not you want to change and change the way you do business potentially,
Yeah,
and maybe lose a little bit of ego to allow you to make that pivot.
for sure. And I think to just hit on that, and something that we really stress is, every season things change and you got to pivot with it, right? Like
Yep.
2 years ago, this was working. Well, that doesn't work anymore. And if you're not making the changes, if you're not pivoting, you're not going to get those phone calls.
Yep.
This isn't a people. I think people get in trouble. Probably people get in trouble in life just in general when they get stagnant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Stop challenging themselves, stop learning, stop educating. And if you're not getting that out to your people, then you're nobody.
Yeah.
They're not gonna come to you when, for the better of, if something happens in the world and we go back to foreclosure short, they're not coming to you
Yeah.
because you're not talking about it, you're not educating them, you didn't pivot. So that's a good point. But
I grew
thank
up
you
in
for that out.
sports. Yeah, no, I grew up in sports too. And, it's funny. I think about it quite a bit. And it's like, in sports, we were never afraid to fail, right?
Yeah,
Trying a new move, whatever, baseball, right? Stealing a
yeah.
base, working on different skills. But, in business, a lot of people are afraid to, even myself, like I check myself all the time, afraid to make that pivot or to make that move or to make that commitment to try something new that may be able to help you, help your business and put you in a better spot. And
For sure.
I literally think about that often, like
Yeah,
why in sports was I always never afraid to lose, or to fail or to look a certain way, you
yeah.
know. But in my real estate business, sometimes I'm just hesitant, to do it. So
Yeah, and I think people, they just, like you said, they get a little hesitant, they get nervous, but I feel like if you really just do it, you have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain.
yeah,
So
no, I agree.
sometimes just ripping the band-aid off is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and you just don't know. That's the thing, is you don't know. It may work out for the best,
Yeah,
and you're gonna be happy, and it may be an absolute dud,
yeah. But at
but you
least you
don't
learn
know.
something. At least you
Yeah,
learn something along the way. I'm a big believer in that. If you fail, what'd you learn? And then won't do it again, or you'll do it
yep,
better, a different way.
yep. So I want to get into graduated college.
Yep.
Mom tells you to go into real estate, which is interesting because most parents don't tell their kids out of college to go into a commission based business.
Yeah.
Um, so you kind of pass on that a little bit, put that on the back burner, get into medical
Yeah.
device sales. How did you get into that? Was it just kind of what was available, kind of fall into your lap, or?
So one of my best friends, he actually took a job the year before me. He went to Otterbein, took a job with a company that moved him out to Kansas City. And I knew it was something with med device, but I heard he was hauling around equipment in a van. So I called him. I'm like, hey, like, what are you doing? So he told me all about it. And, then he came home for like Thanksgiving break. I can remember it. We were, do you remember the old Caribou Coffee on Lane Avenue back in the day before they sold? It's where
No, I
Crimson
don't.
Cups now. It's like
Okay.
down from Whole Foods. It used to be a
Okay.
Caribou Coffee. So I remember we were sitting there and he's showing me like on his an iPad what he's selling and the company, and he gets to travel and do all these things. And I had never left Ohio. Like I'd never lived anywhere else. So he got me an interview, and then the rest was kind of history. And I actually moved to Pittsburgh, believe it or not, for the job. And I was with that company for 5 or 6 years, and I was covering 3 different states. I was gone Tuesday through Thursday. I was 22 years old and, making a living that, I was very fortunate to make at that
Yeah.
age, right? I mean, 22 and, you know, I'm able on a weekend to go out to Los Angeles to visit a buddy,
Yeah.
like not many people were doing that. Um, but during that time is when I got into real estate.
Okay.
And I have a story that pains me, but a buddy of mine who lived in Columbus was like, hey, like, let's buy some properties. And I'm like, what do you want to do with them? Like, I don't know what we're going to do with them. He's like, well, let's buy them and we'll rent them out and we'll just sit on them and we'll kind of grow this business. And I was like, all right, whatever. So we bought this duplex on Dakota Avenue in Franklinton for $15,000.
Yeah.
We fixed it up, put like another like 15 or 20 in it, and it was the worst 2 years of my life with like tenants, right? That area of Franklinton was pretty rough. That would have been like 2011,
I was going to
2012.
say, what year are we talking? Because those numbers were like when I started getting into the business.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough, right? Like
Yeah.
it was bad. And so then we bought another one. We're like, okay, what is like, we'll like figure it out, right? I mean, we have
Yeah.
no clue what we're doing. I'm
Yeah.
100% sure we're losing money every month, like not getting rent checks. I think our property manager was ripping us off, but like we didn't care because we owned properties.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where we were both he ended up working for the same company I did. We were traveling so much, and we just felt like we were being bad landlords. We just couldn't do it, right? Like he
Yeah.
wasn't home, I was in another state, and so we decided to sell it. And I look back, I'm like, if we just would have boarded the houses up and paid the property taxes, we would have just been okay.
Yeah.
So that's how I
Yeah.
kind of
You
got
would
into
have
real
been,
estate.
you would have been better than okay.
Yeah.
You
Well, the
know,
funny thing is, one of those duplexes traded last year for like $375,000 down there.
yeah.
And
See,
I
like,
drove past and I took a picture on my cell phone. I sent it to him. I was like, "You'll never believe what I just found out." And we die laughing thinking about it, like because it was when I tell you it was bad. Like we had police calling us, like there
yeah.
was domestic violence, and it was just like a bad situation.
Yeah.
But that's how I cut my teeth into real estate,
on
actually,
the
from an
on the
investor side.
investing side. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because same type thing as far as looking back. It's always hindsight, right? It always seems
Always.
better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I got into the business, Ryan, who's our team lead and my mentor, we had an REO portfolio that we were selling off for a bank,
Yep.
120 properties. And at the time it was anywhere from 15 grand to 30, 40, 50 grand a property. We
Yep.
were selling houses in Royal Manor over there in Gahanna. I
Yeah.
think the highest one we've ever sold over there was like 60 some $1,000s. And
Wow.
we had 115 of these. And we're like, man, only if I was a broke college kid. So, just
Yeah.
recent grad, I didn't have no money. And it's not like anyone I knew was going to give me any money. But,
Right.
we're looking like, man, only if we would have kept like 10 or
10.
15 of those.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Only
but
if we
it
would
is,
have known what like private money was like back in the day. Like, you could have gone to somebody like, we should do this.
yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. There's over in Gahanna off of Hamilton Road, there's a ranch right across from the Kroger and the Burger King.
Yeah.
And at that time, they weren't developing that side of the street.
Right.
But now closer to 270, they're starting to bring commercial up that side. And I think we sold that thing for, I want to say 66 or $62,000 or something like that. And like, man.
Yeah. That's
But
crazy.
so you're working doing med sales,
Yep.
medical device sales, getting into dabbling into some real estate on the investment side.
Yeah.
How long were you in the medical device sales industry?
Well, what's wild is so I was in Pittsburgh for about 5 or 6 years, moved back to Columbus for a quick minute, still in med device sales, and then got an opportunity um, to go back to Pittsburgh actually. And then I was the director of sales. I got into management actually, and so I got out of kind of the rat race
Yeah.
and got into more management with a startup company. And I was doing that, and I'm now married. I have a kid on the way. I had a previous life, and that previous life ended. And what's wild is we had to call an agent to sell a house. And
Yeah.
this is step two of getting into real estate is had an old farmhouse outside of Pittsburgh, beautiful, fix it up, bought it on a foreclosure, fix it up, took like a year to fix up. And when that part of my life was ending, we had to sell it. So we called this agent. She was like the Sandy Rains of the area, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she was doing the most deals. Her advertising was everywhere. And it was a tough house just because farmhouses, those rooms are small, and
Right.
I was never thinking about leaving. In my head I wasn't thinking about like resale. I was just
Right.
like, I love I love the land and blah, blah, blah. So it took about 9 months to sell this house. And she was awful. She
Mm.
was so bad at her job and communicating. And at the end of that, when I was moving back to Columbus, I said, I'm going to do this because if she can have that life for her, I know what I can do for myself. Right. And I had always wanted to be in the real estate. Like I was reading more, I was listening to podcasts, I had buddies in it. And so that, like, it gave me an opportunity in my life when I was moving back to Columbus to kind of rip off the band-aid and be like, okay, I'm going to go in it. So right before I quit my job, the pandemic hit.
Okay.
So I got licensed in the fall of 2019.
Okay. And that all is at the same time that all
It
of this
was
is.
that had happened like a year before, and then
Okay.
as I was transitioning because I couldn't sell the house, I was transitioning back to Columbus, and
Yep.
I took all the classes through the summer, and I was doing everything online because I was just
Yeah.
trying to turn and burn, which is the worst way to probably do this. Um, in 2019, I got my license, and then I was going to join a team, kind of January 1st.
Yeah.
So I joined the team, getting ready to quit my job, and the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, like nobody knew it was going to happen, right?
Right.
So I was
Right.
like, I'll keep the job because I'm working from home now. I'm not traveling. I'll get in
Right.
the real estate, and after a successful year in real estate in 2020, it was just time to just rip it off. So honestly, I've only been in real estate full time since March of 2021. Believe it or not.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So when you decided to make that jump into the real estate side, obviously
Yep.
the plan was just rip the band-aid off and go in, and then obviously
Yeah.
pandemic happened, so you kind of pumped the brakes a little bit. Was there, other than your friends and other people around you getting into it, was it simply just that agent was so bad that you're like, man, this is probably going to be a somewhat uh, easy career for me to transition into?
I think she played a big part in it, right?
Okay.
Because I had some really good friends in the Pittsburgh area. One of them, he's a top 5 agent in the state of Pennsylvania, in
Wow.
Pittsburgh. Like he's massive. And I had become really good friends with him, and we were just talking about real estate nonstop. And then I had some buddies that were in the commercial real estate space, and so like I just felt like I was always around it, talking about it, learning about it, and I always knew I wanted to get back in the investing side, um, of doing real estate. And so I think she was kind of like the final straw in a way, like she had, I mean, literally, she had done so much business, it was hard not to want to hire her, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so, it was just like a wake up call, like, okay, like if she can do that much business and she's kind of, this is how she runs her business. Well, I've been in business for a decade or two at a
Yeah.
pretty high level. I've worked at a startup where I had to do the marketing, customer service, run a sales team. I feel like I can do this at a pretty high level quickly.
Yeah.
All I got to figure out is like system processes and like find a niche and then go 100 miles an hour at it. And that's kind of what I've been able to do a little bit. But the business world really helped bridge the learning curve, if I would say,
I honestly think that's one
by
of the,
by like 5 years probably.
oh, I'm sure by more than that. I think most of us, myself included, if I didn't, I tell people all the time, if I didn't have my mentor from day one, I would not be in real estate. I would not
Yeah.
be in 11 years later. I didn't have the sales. I didn't understand business. I didn't understand how to attract clients. I didn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tell people, like, the part of why I like giving back and helping, newer agents get in, is because I know I'm lucky. I know I was lucky in that regard.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
in your case, right, like most of us, we don't understand how to run a business, how to set up a business, right? We don't
Yeah.
understand, how to go get clients. And you had both of those backgrounds.
For sure. Yeah, and it definitely helped. And also, I knew from the beginning if I was going to do it, I needed to invest in some tools. So, like, I got into coaching. I hired a coach right away, after my first year. And
Yeah.
people view that as a major expense, and it is. It's an expense, but it's the best investment. And it you make that money back tenfold.
Yeah.
Um, And so I invested in that. And then I also knew that just everything that I was learning is video and social content was going to be the driver. And so from the day one, a buddy of mine, do you follow Life in Columbus?
I
The
don't.
Instagram handle Life in Columbus.
I
So it's
don't.
just like a big account about Columbus, and he runs it. And him and I kind of partnered up, and he kind of showed me how to run Instagram. And so
Okay.
then I just became obsessed with learning social media. Whether that was Instagram or YouTube or Google, I that became my niche.
Yeah.
And so when I got into it, it was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it at a high level because I don't have the sphere that maybe some people do that have grown up here their entire life. I'm not
Yeah.
from here. I didn't live here the majority of my adulthood where you're meeting people out at bars or restaurants or games.
Right.
Um, so I had to figure out how to attract people. And so I think my background of working in business was it gave me the knowledge on like, okay, like this is how you attract customers. This is what you need for good customer success service. These are some processes. If we can get this rolling, then we're gonna be okay. And then
Yeah.
when my wife came along, Paige, she's been in the business for 7 years. She was on Marcy Press, Marcy
Yep.
Press. So
Yep.
she was on her team. So when I had her, she was just like kept encouraging me and was like, keep going at it. And she's been like the best support partner, and then when we started the team, we're the team leads, and then just having her experience and her sphere, and it made for a really great kind of duo with our business.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I want to dive into like that first year
Yeah.
of getting things up and running.
Yep.
Especially during the pandemic, and um, was it struggles? Was it instant success? Especially, I
Yeah.
know with like everyone's always curious about the growing the business through social media platforms, right?
Yeah.
And I guess, what was some of the traction pieces, the momentum, what was kind of that first year experience?
So I think it was a combination of frustration and success. So, at first, I remember the pandemic was kind of coming, January, February, March. I had not done my first deal until I think like May.
Mm,
But during that time, I was on a team. So I was learning a lot, obviously, just about real estate. I didn't know what a
yeah,
purchase contract looked like. Like, how do you write a purchase contract?
yeah,
But I had three things that really happened. I think I had a family friend refer me to an older couple in Pickerington that just took a shot on me. They had to list their house and they wanted to move back to where I was from. And so they just took a shot. Um, it was, it came down to myself and I won't drop any names, but a monster name in Columbus. And they just said, we want to take the shot on the young guy, which is,
that's awesome.
I don't know if I was them, if I would have done that, right? Like, so they took a shot on me. I had another really great referral from a friend, and then I had an admin on the team who was, still to this day. I mean, I always say if it wasn't kind of for her, I would have been lost because having that admin support, she kept me, she kept me on track. She kept me organized. Nothing slipped through the cracks. So to the client, it looked like I knew what I was doing.
Yeah,
Like this guy's on it. And
yeah,
really, it was her because she had all her systems processes set up. Um, and she had been doing it a little bit. So those three things is like the perfect storm, kind of that month 4 or 5. And then I was diligent about my social media. I was posting at that time. Instagram was about pictures, wasn't
yeah,
video yet. So I was pictures and stories, nonstop. And then I worked open houses religiously
yeah,
because I mean you've done it. People walk through there and they might just be looking. Them they might be in town for the day, and through open houses, I think I got like another 3 clients, and they were big price points too, which
yeah.
is wild because like
That's
they didn't
awesome.
ask me how long I was in the business. They didn't ask me my sales. They were just like, I followed up with them, kept following up, and they were like, "Hey, we really like you. Like, thanks for the persistence,
Yeah,
that you've shown." And and I think my first year, I probably did like around like 4.5 million my first year.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I
That's
learned
awesome.
ton, right? I
Yeah.
lost some big deals. I got fired. In my first year.
That's
Uh,
I think that's one of the best things that could ever happen to an agent is a client
yeah,
actually firing you.
yeah, and it was for like a wild reason that didn't make a lot of sense, and it was hard because like I lost a listing, her buy side, her dad's listing that I was gonna list. Like
Yeah.
it was like this domino effect of a couple $1,000,000, and I was really beat up about it.
Yeah.
But it was like kind of like, what'd you learn? What'd you learn? Like you got to get up. The world's not gonna like care anymore, about your losses. You got to get up. It's just you got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So the Instagram then just got more consistent, and then I started getting people moving here, reaching out to me because I just started showing up everywhere.
Yeah. How many times a
And
day
so
were you posting, do you think?
I was only posting on my feed once a day, but I was super active on my story, and I
Gotcha.
still am. I was doing 5 to 10 stories a day, and I was definitely getting up there and hey, I'm at this house, market updates, whatever, asking people questions. Like I would ask people like, hey, are you thinking about moving to Columbus in the next 6 months? One
Yeah.
person would say yes, and I would follow up with them immediately, and maybe they would say something, maybe they wouldn't, but I was just consistent.
Yeah.
And eventually that just kept building a pipeline and a momentum. And one thing I did, and I wanted to always make sure, is with Instagram, is a lot of people but they buy followers, or they
Yeah.
buy views or clicks. And I always wanted to just stay organic. Organically, people will follow me because they like what they see, they like what they hear.
Right.
And that's allowed for, I do a large majority of my business off of YouTube and Instagram.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's I believe this. I think every single real estate agent that gets licensed should join a team, even if it's for the first 6 months to 12 months, from the standpoint of, the
Yeah.
support, the transaction support,
Oh
just
yeah.
the
I
paperwork
mean,
side of things.
oh, for sure. And it wasn't that being on that team sped up my learning curve again, right? It already happened with business, and then
Yeah.
being on a team it sped it up because I could call the team lead. Hey, what do I do? What do you think about this? I just had this conversation. Could ask the admin like, why are you doing all these things? Why do you have a contract timeline? Like, what's earnest money? I don't even know what is earnest money.
Right. Right.
So I think all those things sped everything up, to where I was able to, like, after a year, it's like, okay, like I feel like I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah.
everybody thinks that way. Not everybody wants to run a business.
Right.
My whole aspiration was to have my own thing because I didn't want
Yeah.
to work for anybody anymore. You
Yeah.
know, so that's
Yeah.
kind of how that all worked. So
So 2021 is when you pulled the plug on your
yeah,
other career.
yeah. So March of 2021, that ended, and that ended on a Monday, and I left the team on a Tuesday.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a tough week. That was a tough week for a lot of
Yeah.
reasons, right? I left a team that I had a really strong relationship with, so that was tough. And then I left
Yep.
a job, and my boss, who I had a 10-year relationship with, we had worked together at like different areas. So that week was not a fun week
Yeah.
for anybody, probably. Not just me. Um, but then I was on my own for a little bit, just trying to like get my feet wet.
Yeah.
And then Paige and I got engaged that summer, and was like, okay, you know, now it's time to start this thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So I want to kind of move into the future,
yeah,
and just kind of see what some of the goals are. Any big accomplishments that you're looking to do here in the next 12 months?
yeah. We definitely want to grow the team. We're a team of 3 agents, one full-time admin right now. By the end of the year, we'd like to add 3 to 4, probably more agents, and I'd like to bring on another, full-time, um, like a social media kind of marketing manager. It's getting to the point where I need somebody to come in and take that off my plate. We talked
Yeah.
about like best use of our time. Um,
Yep.
you know, Me thinking about what to post on a day-to-day basis isn't the best use of my time anymore.
Right.
I need somebody to come in that understands, Instagram changes every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It just does. I need somebody to come in that can stay on that and kind of grow that. So that's going to give our agents though the ability to grow their platform.
Right.
Because I think as a team lead, at least for us, I don't want it to be about Brad or Paige. Yes, we're the winter group, but I want it to be about how can I help you? How can I help
Yep.
improve your business? How can I give you time back? Right. I mean, you know how this business is. I mean, we can be run 18-hour days, it seems like.
Yeah.
How do I get some time back for you? And I think having the right support staff set up and the systems and processes to be like, hey, this is what you're going to post, or this is what you should post. And we already have all the templates. We have everything done. You just do it.
Yeah.
A videographer would be great as well, but those are big dreams. 12 months. I'd like to have like 10 agents. I think that's kind of the goal a year from
Yeah.
now.
Moving into actually running, a business, right? I
Yeah,
talk to agents
exactly.
all the time. Like, I don't care if you're just a solo agent, you need people around you to have a team, right?
You do.
You can't do it all for, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, I guess you could, right? It just depends on what your goals are,
Yeah.
right? But like you need a team of people, and whether that's, you as the main person, you got a bunch of support staff, around you,
Yep.
or you being a team lead and bringing on other agents to help you,
Yep.
but actually running it like a business, right? A
For sure.
CEO, a CMO, a CFO, and
Yeah.
all of these other components to make
Yeah.
it a
And
well-oiled machine.
and I think too the consumer is going to demand it,
Yeah,
right? I think they demand the customer experience, the service, the constant education. I mean, people, no matter what people say, they want to be informed. They want
yeah,
they want their financial advisor, their accountant, their lawyer, their real estate agent. They want them to provide them the information to make the right decision. And I
yeah,
think if you don't have systems and processes and staff set up, there's only so much you can do.
yeah.
And then those things then are gonna fall beside, the wayside a little bit because you just can't do it all.
I'm always talking to agents. I try to put in my mind that as a realtor that you need to be on the same level as an attorney, as a doctor, as
Yep.
some of those people that are well respected that have the authority. The doctor's not checking you in and telling you to wait in the waiting room and come back and
Yeah.
to get you, right?
Yeah.
There's support staff, there's a team in place that takes care of all of those things. And like you said a little bit
For
ago,
sure.
it's best use of your time. What's the best
Yeah.
use of your time, right? So
So I was talking to a team kind of in our coaching circle, and I mean they're a large team out of Texas, but they have just a customer experience person,
yep,
and that person's sole job is to just make sure through the transaction and after the transaction that the customer had the best possible experience with the team. They're being followed up on. Gifts are going out. Reminders are going out. Like that is how a tech company is run.
yep,
I mean, that's how businesses are run with
yep.
those type of roles. So I don't think we should be any different.
And here's the thing, you don't have to. We're trying to do it right now with a virtual assistant
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
Philippines, right? And the whole idea is, hey, if you have anything, ours is going to be more of a past client concierge,
Yep.
to where, hey, we build the relationship with our VA and with our clients to where when they close, they're going to start getting things from our past client concierge. And if anything goes wrong, instead of you trying to find the plumber, hey, call the Columbus house team, call Nelia, and
Yeah.
she's going to find you 5 plumbers that are available that are top rated, and she's going to set it up for you. Right? Hey, give me
Yeah.
a couple of days that work best. I'll take care of scheduling it, and we'll get it on the books. The white
Exactly.
glove service, right? So,
Yep.
um, and I think you're right when you said the consumer is going to demand that type of stuff. You
For sure.
know,
Yeah. And I think too, especially in this new kind of market we're going in, and you've been in this longer than I have, is those who do these things, you're not gonna see a dip in their numbers.
right?
They're just gonna keep going up. They're gonna grab market share. This is a time to grab market share, I think.
Yeah,
If you're really serious about your business, if you're growing, you can grab market share right now. Because most
yeah.
people aren't gonna invest dollars. They're not gonna do the systems and processes that you just talked about. Um, so I think not only for us we should be doing it, but consumers are gonna look to those people that do that.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, right? Like we got an email. This was probably, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks ago from a past client. I was like, hey, do you know anyone that does artificial turf? You know? And
Yeah,
like, I didn't know off the top of my head, but I told our virtual assistant, I said, hey, just, see if there's some top rated, companies here in Columbus and give them a list of 2, 3, 4, that they can choose from.
yeah, yeah. Let
You
them
know?
interview them and let them make a decision. Don't.
Yeah.
I think it always gets tricky when you're like, "This is the guy," and then it goes south. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that gets hard a little that gets a little difficult sometimes,
yeah, yeah,
but that's the whole goal, and you can do that the client concierge from the minute that they meet with you to the minute that they close to then, after closing, whatever the case may be. So
absolutely. Love that.
that's awesome. That's awesome that you're looking to grow the team. Any big accomplishments in the next 5 years?
Oh man, I want to just have a really respected team in Columbus. I think we can get. I'd love to be a top 10 team, in Columbus and have our own shop. I love not necessarily brokerage, like our
Sure.
own building or
Yeah.
office space where we can have clients come in. It can kind of be like our own, you know. But that's big dreams. I mean, I want to keep investing in real estate. My wife and I, we own a couple properties right now where you know we kind of want to ramp that side of the business up as well. So want to do more of that, and then we're expecting our first baby in October. So we just want to grow the family, and
Yeah,
yeah, man,
congratulations.
yeah. So some big dreams, but I like setting big goals, but I like killing the day at the same time, right? Gotta kind
Yeah.
of dominate each day before you can get there.
Yep, exactly. What do you
What,
think, it's gonna take in order for you to get to the top 10?
um, we're gonna have to get some really good agents, and whether that's new agents that are hungry and willing to kind of follow those systems or processes, or we're gonna have to bring in some really established agents that see the value in what we do, and we're gonna have to add some admin, some of those things that you're talking about, whether that's a client success or concierge. Um, and we're just going to have to keep growing the brand. I think from a social media aspect, we're getting more recognition, and I think we just got to 10x that because people are going to go to YouTube and Google and Instagram to find stuff, right?
Yeah,
So I think if we can continue to build our presence in that space, um, we got a good shot. So
and
we're going to go
yeah,
after
no,
it.
I think that's awesome, and you're right, it's people, right? It's people,
Yep.
processes, systems, and you
Yep.
already know that.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys seem like you have a great culture, and I think that's a big thing too. Is like we're real selective. We've had a lot of agents call us. We've interviewed agents, but we want to be very selective because culture can kill your business,
Yep,
right? And there's no reason to take on somebody that's going to bounce in 6 months. It's going to happen. That's just the
yep,
way business is. But if
yep,
you can kind of eliminate the maybe in there, we want somebody for the long haul.
yeah.
You know,
I know you only got a couple minutes left. I got a 2 questions for you. 1,
all
do you
right,
think real estate agents are still sleeping on YouTube?
100%. Not even close.
I've just started ramping mine up this year. We were talking before we jumped on. One of my virtual assistants, Leo, he is my digital marketing guy, and he's been helping me out tremendously. Just as far as like getting stuff out, the
Yeah.
content. But
I
I think
think
it's
if you are
definitely a
not
missed
on
opportunity.
I think if you are not on YouTube, then you're not serious enough about understanding what's going on in the market. How about that?
I love it. One last question. One last question.
Yeah.
I always like to end the podcast with this, and if you could give the audience one piece of advice that you wish you had, um, either now, today, or when you first got into the business, what would that be?
Um, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think people get into this and they're like, maybe they're in a brokerage or maybe they're in a team and they're scared to call you. You've been doing this for, 12 years. They're scared to call you. He's not going to take my call. He's not going to answer my questions, right? I see too many times people are afraid to ask questions. I was one of them, right? Like, I don't want to call my team lead because, like, do I sound stupid? Like, am I supposed to know this? I know he's told me
Right.
this 10 times. I think that if you're doing yourself a disservice by not learning as much as you can right off the bat. And so that's my biggest piece of advice. Ask questions, be a sponge. I mean, shoot, even when I was going on, well, I had my license, but I wasn't in it. I was going with my team lead to open houses or
Yeah.
meetings with him because I would just want to take it all in. Like, how do you do this? How do these conversations go? I think people get into this and they're like, oh, this is going to be easy. I don't need to do all this stuff. And then they look back, or maybe their business doesn't go as planned. And like, wow, like maybe I don't know what I'm doing, or maybe I should have asked those questions. So be a sponge, ask questions.
No, I love it, Brad. I appreciate you coming on and spending time with us, and
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
just
Appreciate it.
sharing. Yeah, of course, sharing your journey and your story into the business and what you're doing and where you want to get to.
Awesome.
Um, for those that Brad's Instagram scrolling at the bottom of the screen, but for those that are listening in, Brad, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah. Just shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm on there all the time. So it's Brad Winter _ you can find me, or you can find me at the Winter Group on Instagram as well. I'll respond, no doubt.
Awesome, awesome, good
All
stuff,
right,
Brad.
man.
Thanks so much. I had a blast
Yeah, let's do this again. I appreciate it.
for sure. All right, talk to you later.
All right, thanks.